everybody, and welcome to another instalment of the Joy of Soldering. Today we are still working on our sub-octave, which is actually complete. I tested this last night and it sounds pretty good. It was kind of funny because I plugged it in, got nothing but noise, and thought, oh man, what have I done? And then I realised I hadn't actually put any of the ICs or the transistors actually into the circuit. I just left their little holders. But yeah, it works fine. It sounds pretty good. I wasn't able to run it loud because it was Sunday night and that would be kind of unfair. But today we're at the point of marking out the enclosure. So I'm going to try something a little bit different. I've never done this before. So I want to arrange the controls in a square. So we've got our two pots in these corners. We've got our double push, double throw switch, and we've got an LED as well. And I want all of these to be arranged in a square on the front plate. The actual foot switch and the in and outs I can do later, but what's important at first is going to be for me laying this out. So the way that I'm going to do it is I'm going to take like a trace at the edge of an enclosure on a piece of A4, and I'm going to try and put some graphite on the tips of these and then just push it in, and hopefully that'll leave an impression. Okay, so I'm going to try and add the graphite. So got the enclosure here, put it face down on a piece of paper. I'm going to change the angle. Whoa. Right, face down, copy the outline. I'm really not great at anything that involves holding a pen or pencil. But okay, so we've got this front section now, and we need to cut off probably about the bottom third for the battery, but we're just going to be popping this at the top here. And it's got to be just less than an inch from the top to make sure we've got enough space for the rest of the enclosure. So let's try. Added some graphite to the top here. I'm just going to put it on the center. And now let's see if that fits. Alas, no. We can try it with something a little more liquid. The permanent marker doesn't work either. Right, so back to the drawing board. So my next idea will be to simply measure between the two center points, which is, in our case, 3.1 millimeters. So when we've got 3.1 millimeters, I'm just going to use a little bit of Pythagoras theorem, which is c squared is equal to a squared plus b squared. This is probably one of those things that you saw in school and thought, man, I'm never going to need to use that, which is a little bit frustrating because I do every day. So this is just a quick photograph showing you kind of where I've marked stuff out. The little rectangle in the top corner, sort of about here, is where we've got our controls mounted, and we've got the three lines that I was kind of using to guesstimate where I wanted the foot switch. If you note on the triangle that I've used to mark the center point of the pedal, I tried to give that the same distance for the foot switch below the center as the first set of controls above the center. Now that just kind of looked a little weird, and I was wondering whether it would get in the way of the battery, but it seems fine. It seems fine with where I just marked it by eye in the first place. So it's actually a little bit lower. I then marked it too low, so I decided to go for the middle one. And I've already got a template made up for the sides with a power supply, so I will use the template for that on this enclosure. So we're just going to cut this out. I will clamp that on top of the enclosure, and then I'll use the center punch to see what happens. Let's go. So the next bit we'll do is we'll drill these holes to full size. While the holes are in place, literally all I'm going to do is take the circuit board and all of the extra bits and take a drill bit and kind of match them up and be like, okay, that seems about right. And if you're ever unsure, it's better to go smaller than larger, because we can always take a file and widen out these holes. This one seems about right for the input and output jacks, so I'll just load this into the drill. I don't think this drill is particularly great. It's got a keyless chuck, which means that I can never really seem to get the grip that I want. I can read the value on this, and this one says it's a 9mm bit. Right, let's get it done. So since the last video, we really just did more of the same. We widened a few more of those pilot holes to fit the controls, fit the LED, fit the switch, and I painted the box. Now I don't have any clips of that, and you can find on the back of any spray can how to spray effectively. And don't laugh, but this is what it looks like. That is supposed to be a U with an umlaut, because multiple reasons. But I am not good with a paintbrush, so every time I made it uneven, I tried to re-even it. I hear that people have the same problem with doing their eyeliner. One just gets thicker and then they do the other one and it just never matches up. But anyway, the way that I did this is I gave it 2 coats of primer, left it to dry for a few days, gave it 1 coat of black. In fact, no, sorry, I gave it 2 coats of black, which kind of started to crack. And I've got this gold leaf paint, which I've used to cover the cracks, kind of like the way that kintsugi works. So that was kind of cool, I think. But yeah, the ooh didn't really turn out okay, because it was supposed to be the U-boat, and it was supposed to be a tone that makes you go, ooh. It's pretty dumb, but yeah. And for the labels, these are like the Dymo punch labels. I managed to pick up a big box of those, like wholesale, more or less. A big box of unlabeled extra spare parts. And what I did is, after spraying the black, after the painting, I put these labels on, and then I've given it since 2 coats of clear lacquer, which just holds everything in place, protects the paint a little bit more. But yeah, actually this spray paint is still cracking, unfortunately, which is just me having not sprayed particularly well. But yeah, read the instructions on your spray paint. Make sure you try and do that properly, and choose a good place to spray. If I were to look at this again, you can see that particularly the foot switch hole in the centre really isn't very good. I've since invested in some step bits, which should improve that sort of thing. But that's my recommendation. Read the instructions, use a step bit, and in the next episode, we'll get this all boxed up and give you a sound demo. See you then.
The joy of soldering.